Welcome to Wayne's Word. Today we have with us a very, very special guest. This is Victor Marx. He's the founder of All Things Possible Ministries and also is a gubernatorial candidate running as a Republican for governor of Colorado. So welcome, Victor. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's a very cool podcast studio, too. I want people to know you can't see it all, but this is very cool.
Well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you, since I guess you have a very cool podcast studio as well.
We've been doing it a few years, so yeah.
Welcome to Wayne's World, rising above the noise and confusion.
It's Wayne's Word.
Oh.
You are those who don't know you, and I think a lot of people do know you. If you haven't researched Victor, you should just go on YouTube. There are many videos, where he's giving testimony to his life, which is far from a normal life. Victor grew up as an abuse victim in every possible way. He was, his stepdad tried to electrocute him. Tried to control him by nearly drowning him in a bathtub. Mm-hmm. What were you, 5, I believe, at the time?
Yeah, the main abuse happened between ages 3 to 7.
3 to 7. You were locked in a commercial freezer, nearly freezing to death at age 5.
Yeah.
You were forced to witness and participate in all sorts of violent acts, including an adult forced you to kill a man when you were 7 years old.
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine what that must be like to be 7 years old and have to murder someone to save your own life. Can you tell me what that was like?
Yeah, well, I'd say this. It resulted in 123 visits to a trauma specialist to try to make my brain right from the abuse. And I used to not share some of the darker things of my childhood. One, because I hadn't healed from it, didn't work through it. And I was in my 40s before I started even feeling comfortable enough to risk sharing things. And, my bride, Eileen, she would see the suffering that I still had struggled with at times. And then when I really got healed up, she just said, well, honey, you've always had a heart for hurting kids and youth. And you're not the only one that this happens to. And we spent so much time in youth prisons around the country. And these were oftentimes kids who had suffered pretty bad abuse as well. So that's when I started sharing. And then rarely, but I would share in the church. And then it just depends on the audience. And the main thing is to let people know you're not alone. Abuse, 1 in 3 girls will be sexually abused before she's 18, and 1 in 5 boys. But people suffer physical and emotional abuse, large scale in our nation. And if, I heard it said, when you build a child, you won't have to repair an adult. And there was a lot of my adult years that I either self-medicated or was driven, but it wasn't until I really got healed up that things changed for my life. So yeah, I would just tell folks watching and listening, the shame isn't yours for any type of abuse, and you don't have to live by a label even a psychiatrist or psychologist would give you, because God made us to heal.
And you have, having given the childhood that you had, you got involved in drugs, fights, crime, theft, a near court-martial when you were in the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yep.
I think if anyone out there thinks that they want a politician, you're not a politician.
Not at
you're
all.
running for governor.
Right.
But if you would like leadership who has suffered, and you think you have suffered, I think that Victor Marx can probably relate to anything that you've been through.
Thank you for saying that. And it is, whereas I have some people wanting to disqualify me because of my past.
Sure.
It actually, for hundreds of thousands of people right now, and millions who've watched and know me, it qualifies me more than most because I make decisions based on thick data, not thin, not just head knowledge, but understanding how choices that leaders make affect people. And I'm not the arrogant type that says it's my way or the highway. I mean, we've only been running our announcement, about a little over 2 months. And I'm still in the listening phase on a lot of questions that people have, or they want help with certain policies. And I'm like, well, tell me, how is this affecting you? We just did a Western Slope tour, and boy, I sat on with ranchers, people in ag, county commissioners, business people, parents. And I'm saying, tell me how the last 8 years of a one-sided administration, all Democrats, have affected y'all. And I'm still in that phase right now.
You came out with a video this week, I think it was. I think I caught it on Facebook. It was. George, can you bring up the video that I was talking about where Victor, you did sort of a little dance and you were wearing a jacket and you showed off your weapons. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people see that, and I've heard various comments, all sorts of different comments on it. I didn't really understand it till I spent a lot of time researching you last night, and then I understood it. Because, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, because it's kind of fun to watch. It's kind of funny. I think some people have said on Facebook, when the person who posted it, when I saw it, said, "Can you believe this man is running for governor of Colorado?"
Right.
And you showed off your guns, and I get that now, because it's after researching you quite a bit, and I'd like you to talk on this. This is just my outside view of it. You like weapons, you like guns, and a lot of people do for a lot of different reasons, but I suspect your reason is that it's an equalizer. You were a victim, and now you're a survivor. But you know, when you're 5 years old and somebody's drowning you in a bathtub and saying, "Shoot this man in the head, or I'm going to shoot you in the head," and electrocuting you and controlling you in every possible way, and you realize that the only thing that could save a person who maybe is in a wheelchair, an old person, a young person, a disabled person, is a weapon. I understand where you might really like weapons.
Right.
But tell me, am I correct on that, or am I missing something?
No, you are. You're spot on. And the video, I was just, one of our team members, he was recording me. We were just joking around. And I love how one person said, contradicting the person, because the person posted it trying to be derogatory. And they just, like, a younger person said, "I can't believe he's playing Korn," which is a popular rock band. But one of the band members I know, and he had become born again. And so, yeah, for me, my childhood, you either get bitter or better when you come from stuff like that. I became a protector. It's the backstory. It's what's in so many movies, is why has this person become a Batman? Why is this person the Avenger? Why? I became a protector, which most men are, but definitely mine was driven a little bit further. I've had to use humor to temper the intensity of things I've seen and experienced. And outside of this video, me holding the world record for the fastest gun disarm, I'll explain that after this video.
That's right, and that's something we may show a clip of in this podcast, but you can find it on YouTube. You can see.
It has
disarm.
over 1 billion views, literally over 1 billion.
It is amazing to watch how quickly you can disarm someone who has a gun to your head, ready to pull the trigger.
Yep.
And you can disarm that person before that person could pull the trigger.
Yes.
And you've shown that many times. George, are you ready to show this video of Victor? You ever hear a story that makes you sit up and think, if he can do it, why not me? Scott Riopel built his life from scratch. No handouts, just hustle. Now he runs Interstate Roofing, part of the One Solutions family, and he's showing others the path out. If you're ready to change your life, follow him on Facebook and Instagram at big _ Scott 303. This isn't just roofing, this is a way up. At Integrity Bank and Trust, integrity is more than a name. It's a way of doing business. My family does business there, and I can tell you they are the friendliest and easiest we have worked with over decades as entrepreneurs and small business owners. Integrity's expert and friendly personnel offer home loans, treasury management, personal banking, and other services for every stage of life. Integrity puts customers first, living up to its name.
Just feel it in your soul. This will be my first day in office, walking into the chambers to consecrate it back to God. Time to get to work.
All right, yeah. So a lot of people get a kick out of that. A lot of people are turned off by it.
Right.
What do you say? Yeah, put that in context for us.
Yeah,
Again.
we were just walking out of the studio in the shooting range, and the sun actually felt good. That song came up on my truck, and this is the balance of me, someone who's come from abuse and struggled and, spent years overseas rescuing and recovering women and children from ISIS. If you don't have an outlet, then PTSD and TBIs, they'll get to you. So I use humor as an anesthesia to relax, and I'll never let somebody pigeonhole me into what they think I should be or am, because the fact that I was victimized and I survived, I tell people I'm not a victim anymore. I'm a victor, and I went from surviving to thriving. And again, people who understand suffering, they're like, my gosh, thanks for just giving us a breath of fresh air.
And Brian Welch is what you were saying.
Yeah, Brian.
The lead singer of Korn.
Yeah.
Very much a born-again Christian.
Oh, heck yeah.
Doesn't fit the mold. I mean, you look
At
at
all.
Brian. Yeah, you look at Brian, and he looks all-in rock star.
Right.
Radical.
Right.
Radicalized rock star, for that matter.
But this is a good example of where, I tell people I'm not a politician, but I'm a leader. And I'm not, I'm entering, and I've entered this race, and I believe I'll win the primary and go on to win the general, but it's for the people. Every Coloradan, not just for a party, not just for a small group of people, but for all of Colorado, including the independents and some Democrats.
Okay, now one of the reasons, you don't have a typical politician's background. You don't necessarily, you have an executive background in that
Right.
you run a large ministry.
Yep.
And you get things done. You get people out of harm's way
Yeah.
in foreign countries. And so there is an executive background there. But what I find interesting is the fact that you have suffered, especially as a child, because I contend that Colorado is not a safe environment for children anymore.
I would agree.
And it's just getting worse and worse. Colorado saw a record number in 2023 of trafficking crimes, up 20 to 30% year over year.
That's right.
In 23. That's just the latest data available, so it's probably getting worse.
It is.
With child cases surging in urban areas, Denver, 18% of reports. Vulnerable groups, this involves a lot of homeless, LGBTQ plus youth,
Yeah.
and immigrant children.
Yes.
And so, these families come over from Venezuela or wherever, the 40,000+ illegal immigrants who flooded into Denver in the last couple of years, and they have a lot of children with them who are victims of sexual abuse and are impoverished and are, they're surrounded by crime.
Wayne, I didn't expect this from you, but I'm so grateful we're able to see your heart on this, because I always say this, I don't care what country, state, people group, what the way folks take care of children really determine what the culture is or the state. And I explained this at a place I spoke a couple of days ago. My wife and I and our team were on the border of Texas and Mexico. And I remember we were doing a mission down there. Kids were getting out of little dinghies, crossing the river. Some of them were wet. Some of them were just children. I remember two sisters, 9 and like 11 or something. And I remember them getting out. It was at night. We wrapped towels around them, blankets, because they were cold. And they looked at my bride, Eileen, and they just started crying. It had taken them 3 months to get there. They had been abused in multiple points, but they were so desperate to get into the United States, and they were by themselves. And this was our first words, welcome to America. Because children, it's not kids' faults, the evil things people do. And before your viewers go, well, wait a minute, they're illegal. I'm like, yes, Captain Obvious, they are. But they shouldn't have to pay a penalty for trying to escape horrible conditions. And they got to be taken care of, and then figured out the rest. That same night, I've got night vision goggles on. Me and a team member, we're in a different location, watching guys cross into the country with children, holding them, and they're not their children. They're getting in to get that free passport because of the Biden administration, and then they'll traffic those kids. So in Colorado, I want people to understand, although we've done work all over the world, including we went on the entire immigrant trail from Mexico to Guatemala, Panama, the Darien Gap, down to Colombia. We saw what they do. And I believe in secure borders, 1,000%. But I think it was a political move to get as many folks into this country to vote for Democrats. They don't care about the people. They just want the vote. And that's the danger of using and exploiting people who are really suffering. And at the same time, you let nefarious characters in. That's why we have an issue right now with cartels here in this state, which, trust me, crime and public safety is it's my number one thing that must be worked on. And you may not even know this, but I started a think tank several years ago and then developed a task force. It's called Protecting Children's Innocence Task Force. And we've signed MOUs with federal, state, local agencies. And I don't know when this is going to come out, but I can tell you right now, beyond any shadow of a doubt, this week, we've already rescued a number of children from horrible people. And I can't say any more because it's not public, but we're working 24/7 by, through, and with law enforcement. And that's going to be one of my first things I do here is set up the task force and watch how many kids we protect, watch how many bad people we get, because I'm a no-nonsense protector. And Coloradans need protecting, moms with their kids at school, playgrounds. And it's not a hard fix. It's just allowing law enforcement to do their job, support them, train them, equip them, and give them top cover, and then undo some of this crazy, horrible legislation that makes soft crime, and it really promotes criminals to do what they want.
Well, and we've had 10 years of that here in Colorado with full Democratic rule of every statewide office,
Right.
it's both chambers of
one-sided.
the legislature, most of the congressional seats, both Senate seats. But the Colorado General Assembly did something absolutely outrageous last year. I couldn't believe it. The General Assembly, the legislature, rejected a bill aimed at increasing penalties for adults who engage with sex with child prostitutes. So Republicans put up a bill saying we need to crack down because there are a lot of men in Colorado taking advantage of child prostitutes, especially now that you have all of these illegal immigrants.
That is correct.
And the children who've been brought into this country unsupervised or brought in by child traffickers. And they rejected this. This was going to increase penalties. It sought to impose a mandatory minimum sentence for specific child prostitution-related felonies, treating them as extraordinary risk crimes, which would have been like a 4-year minimum sentence for class
Right.
3 for soliciting children for prostitution, pandering, procurement of a child, keeping. Anyway, any of these prostitution crimes with children. Democrats didn't want stiffer penalties for that. They rather would listen to these trial lawyers and these defense attorneys who are a major constituency of theirs, who thought this was not fair for some reason. I can't even wrap my head around
Right.
not wanting stiffer penalties for somebody who participates in child prostitution.
I've said this, and I'll say it again. The leadership, the current leadership, the one-sided administration, the moral code is broken. And you can see the manifestation of it through the legislative efforts of bills and amendments that are passed or forced upon people. And that will stop day one with me, because it's common sense to protect children. It's common sense to go after people who will exert themselves for sexual pleasure against children, or the less fortunate. And this is one of the things that we do so well, and have been doing it for decades now. And we can clean up Colorado quickly the moment I'm in that governor's seat.
Well, the Democratic leadership sent this thing to the Kill Committee, House State Civil, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee, where 100% of Democrats on the committee voted to postpone it indefinitely. And what they were hearing from the opponents were public defenders and the Colorado Criminal Defense Bar, arguing that they cited concerns that mandatory minimums would exacerbate racial disparities and prison overcrowding.
No.
No. They're worried about racial disparities. They're worried about the race of somebody who maybe commits an offense against a child. What about most of these children are not white American children.
Right.
If you want to talk about race.
Yeah.
The victims.
Yeah. And recently I spoke with some Latino and Hispanic pastors and leaders in communities, and they're concerned about the crime. They're and I'm telling you, the justification for not protecting children is an abhorrent, evil stain on Colorado that's got to be removed. Now, I'll say this. I spoke somewhere, and a Democratic leader came out and attended, and afterwards wanted a picture, and I did too. We were shaking hands. I posted that, and I found out he came out because he's actually a fan of mine. He, has followed me for years because of, and I think a lot of men really appreciate my book, Dangerous Gentleman. I brought for y'all. And we have a dangerous gentleman society, which is men who live to a moral code. All races, creeds, religions, it doesn't matter. Men are wanting to stand up. And when I do these speaking events on the campaign trail, do you know they're packed every time, standing room only. Of course, there's always a couple of dissenters, which is fine. Go for it. But it's not going to change the fact that I'm winning in every way, and the people, for the first time in a long time, have hope that somebody can actually win the governor's seat.
This was a message of one of your dear friends who's no longer with us, Charlie Kirk, was that men are supposed to defend women and children, to stand up for women and children.
Yes.
And that's a major part of our role in life.
Yes.
Where were you? What were you doing when Charlie was shot? What was that day like for you? I mean, you two were close, as I understand it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell people, and I never really mentioned it until after he was murdered, but he asked me to mentor him, be one of his mentors, uh, several years ago. And then we had a wonderful relationship, and my wife with Erica, and getting texts and calls from them about parenting and marriage. And he would text me and say, I just need some Victor Marx time. And yeah, he really understood the importance of masculinity and the role of a man as a father and husband and protector in our society. And a lot of the progressive left has diminished that role. And when men are not in a role of leadership as a protector and provider, women will step up and things can get out of balance. And before anybody jumps to conclusions, believe me, my bride is highly capable. She's a black belt, a shooter. She's been on missions. And, I seldom make tons of very important decisions without her counsel. But it is the man's role in society to protect women and children. And Charlie, we'd have these conversations, and he would just soak it up because men should open doors. Men should stand in the gap. It's an evil thing when men take advantage of women and children. And again, in Colorado, crime has affected us in a huge way. It's affected us personally with family members who, one was assaulted, broad daylight, right in Colorado Springs at Briargate. And it was a 45-minute delay for law enforcement to get there. And when they did, they were like, we know who he is. He's a registered sex offender. And just don't get your hopes up too high on us capturing him. I looked at that officer and said, sir, we'll catch him. And he looked at me like, what? And I just said, you don't know who we are. I had a 3-person team there immediately when one of our family members was assaulted. And he looked at me. I took my sunglasses off, and he goes, oh, my gosh, I do know who you are. And I said, well, then you will know that I do what we say we're going to do. And I'm happy to report that my team caught the guy. And then later, because of some complications, he had to be caught again. And he was, by U.S. Marshals. But the problem is we're still in the court case with him. Registered sex offender, multiple abuses, multiple counts of felonies against him because of other women that came forward. And he's only facing 3 years with a plea bargain. And the prosecutor told us, this is the best we can do. He'll probably do 1.5 years, if that, and then get out and keep becoming a predator. And I said, what can we do to make people like him stay in prison? She said, change the legislation. And I looked at her and said, I'm going to be the next governor, and we'll do it.
We've just spent most of the last 10 years making it easier for people to avoid prison time.
Right.
Completely avoid prison time for violent crimes.
Right.
And then, I don't know, I don't have a dog in the hunt here regarding this Tina Peters out in Mesa County, but there's a 70-year-old woman who committed something far from a violent crime who's facing hard time, 10 years, almost 10 years in a state penitentiary. Yet we have people who are repeat violent offenders constantly getting out and reoffending and killing people.
Just compare the two. And that's why I said day one, as governor, I'll commute the sentence of Tina Peters. She was found guilty by her peers and jury, and I don't contest that. That is what it is, what it stands. But the sentencing is, again, it doesn't even make sense.
Does she need to be in a cage for us to be safe?
Yeah,
that doesn't make any. But there are a lot of people out there who do need to be in a cage for our children to be safe.
Absolutely.
And so we have decriminalized every hard drug known to mankind.
Yeah.
And we are now the last, and it's probably moved up to first, but the last available data, We have the second highest juvenile overdose rate in the country.
Unbelievable.
This is the second most dangerous state in terms of crime
That's right.
in the country, as rated by U.S. News and World Report. We have, as we have embarked on this large-scale criminal justice reform, which really just means we're reducing penalties, mostly for violent crimes.
We're inviting criminals here.
So, yeah, we've made it a very attractive place for criminals. Youth homelessness, we are 30 to 50% worse off than the rest of the country. Child maltreatment, in general, we are 22% higher than the rest of the country. The youth homicide rate is 10% higher than the rest of the country. Prevalence of youth mental illness, 20 to 30% higher than the rest of the country. Juvenile violent crime rates are significantly higher than the rest of the country. This all tracks with, you can say, well, correlation is not cause, but let's use some common sense here.
Right.
As we have embarked on this criminal justice reform, this soft on crime legislation that has all been passed by Democrats in the legislature who have strong majorities and signed into law by Governor Jared Polis, we have seen all of these metrics that involve harm against women and children, and not just women and children, but generally women and children. See, crime victims generally are minorities.
They are.
The poor.
They are.
Women.
Disenfranchised, struggling. They are. Now, it's so bad in Colorado, making us the second most unsafe state, that it's poured into affluent areas now. Like, there's nowhere safe in Colorado. And I would say this, some laws are passed or legislation with good intention. But because of poor leadership that won't assess and go, this backfired, we need to back throttle on this and change this out quick. Then you wonder, what was your motivation for it in the first place? The stats show, and everything, you know what, Wayne, everything you're talking about, that is right up my alley. I mean, I've been to every major juvenile prison and facility in Colorado. It's where I started our ministry, reaching kids who are incarcerated, troubled youth. The fentanyl crisis, it's on my top list because we have to get effective, solid treatments and reward them for working. When there's accountability to the end result, not just the impact moment. A lot of agencies and organizations are good at, through marketing, of touting impact. But what's the outcome? Are people safer? Are people getting off the streets? Are there pathways forward for independence? Kids getting mental health. The mental health challenge here, and I've talked to law enforcement. I was down in Pueblo talking to people who lived on the street, homeless folks, and I'm all, what are y'all biggest challenges? Why are you here? Are you coming from Denver to here? How do we stop this? And again, I have to believe that people in leadership either are intentionally trying to dismantle one of the greatest states of our nation, and it's been systematic, or are they just that poor of a leader that doesn't give a flying squirrel sack about the people?
Yeah, there seems to be this, I like to call it a mind virus. But
Yeah,
it's
mind rot.
That the perpetrator is actually more of the victim than the victim victimized by the perpetrator.
Yes.
That this person, so you grew up the victim of perpetrators.
Right.
When you were too young to do anything about it. And just because of the circumstances you were born into, and I think a lot of people are born into similar circumstances.
I would say many are.
Not all of them come forward like you do. With you hold nothing back.
Right.
You killed a man when you were 7 because you had to, and you tell people about it. A lot of people would never, ever talk about something like that.
And I tell folks, I go, I'm called to share my story to help others, and in a public platform. And again, I didn't start till I was in my 40s, and I had accomplished what I needed to and wanted to in life to feel secure enough about everything. But it is, people's hearts need healing. for childhood experiences, broken relationships, addictions, the unfairness of the system. And that's where my experience as a leader of an NGO globally and an organization that helps those less fortunate will win not only the Republican, because I'm a conservative, I'm a Western conservative. I call myself an independent Republican, because it is people over a party for me. But this is where I will win the independents. And I am rejuvenizing and revitalizing and energizing the Republican Party, where, thousands are telling us, I haven't voted in years. I've lost some motivation. I haven't ever given to a campaign, but I'm giving to yours. And I'm telling you, Wayne, come with us. Watch the videos. This isn't hype. We're showing the whole crowd. Some candidates show 2 or 3 people and make people believe there's more there when there's not. There's a movement going on with our campaign, and it's far greater than just an election. And that's what hope makes a difference.
Well, and I think where people are asking, where are the mainstream big-name Republicans? Where are the George Brocklers, for instance?
Right.
And they're not running because they see this as a futile task to be
Correct.
elected as a Republican in Colorado. Maybe it is time. Maybe the time has come for someone who just simply doesn't fit that mold whatsoever.
Absolutely.
In a state that's, that is predominantly outcomes are determined by unaffiliated voters.
Right.
And I think whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a liberal, a conservative, whatever you are, I think everyone has had it up to here with crime.
That right there.
Right now.
Crime, affordability, education, energy. We need energy back in this state.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about that. The Public Utilities Commission just this last week, they're going along with these mandates for a 41% reduction in natural gas emissions over the next 10 years.
Right.
And they're just killing the natural gas industry here in Colorado.
Right.
All sorts of green mandates have done this. And it's interesting. We have the Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, is from Colorado. And nobody articulates this better than him. But when you start, my wife, by the way, runs an NGO, and she helps rescue people particularly Nigeria. She works very hard in Nigeria, where there's a little girl named Shayabu, is her last name.
Huh.
And but anyway, the point being, in third world, undeveloped environments,
yes.
Chris Wright he's good at pointing out how when we here in Boulder and Aspen and upper parts of Denver and Colorado Springs, and we sit back and we say, well, we can't be polluting the environment with natural gas. We get people killed in other countries because they have to burn then dung, garbage.
Yes.
They cut down trees that are still green. This is how they heat. This is how they cook. So we're actually causing more pollution that doesn't know any territorial boundaries, any political lines, and causing death and painful, slow death by the poisoning of these unclean fuels, while we sit here and we hoard clean fuel underground.
You're absolutely right, and I think I've been in over 40 countries now. I've been in jungles. I've been in Africa, the Middle East, down to South America, to Southeast Asia. And the reality of people who are just trying to survive, it's hypocritical. Whereas this is where I believe it is upon the goodwill of man to help others who are less fortunate. And them trying to stop and impose a unfunded mandate upon the people that will end up costing $80 to $100 billion to implement. Again, I'll give some of them the benefit of the doubt because, hey, I love protecting my environment. That's why people move to Colorado, hunt, fish, hike. We want to protect the environment, but we shouldn't be getting rid of clean fuel that people have lived on for forever, and forcing people to become all electric, that this doesn't make sense to me. And when you can access energy from multiple sources, as long as it's done responsibly and effectively, there's a great balance. But again, I just don't think there's a balance up in the leadership of Denver. Under that dome, it's been Democratic controlled for, almost a decade, and we're seeing the results of it. That's why when people, and I encourage people, go to Victor2026.com, go to our website, sign up. We have we're over 1,100 volunteers. We outraised everyone on funding, which funding matters in the first 60 days. And you mentioned that candidate, he was thinking about running. I was in a magazine article on Forbes. They did an article, and they put me as double digits leading the rest of the entire Republican field. Yeah, that was 2 weeks into the campaign. I'm only 2 months into it now. Right. And we can win, and people know it, because I'm not a politician. I'm an independent Republican. I have no voting background that will pin me down. People know I'm for the people of Colorado more than I am just a party. And it's what Colorado needs, is a small window. And you mentioned Charlie Kirk with him being murdered. It showed the younger generation there is good and there is evil. Not this, relative, your truth isn't my truth. That doesn't work when somebody's pulling a trigger or when somebody's abusing a kid.
That's right. And that's why I was bringing up my wife's work in Africa, but other countries as well. And the child I'm thinking of is Leah Sharibu. Leah Sharibu. You should look her up if you haven't, if you've not heard of her. Leah Sharibu it's been now the better part of a decade. She was kidnapped by radical Islamists because she refused to renounce Jesus Christ as her savior, and they made her convert to Islam, and marry an Islamist, a radical Islamist, and that she's just sort of she's one of many, 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 of course, in Nigeria. We saw a whole school full of children just a couple weeks ago get kidnapped.
Yeah.
But she's sort of become the poster child because she was one of the first and one of the most high profile. But the way that the mainstream media back here treat it is that there isn't an evil war against Christians in Nigeria.
Oh my gosh!
Where there is, it's
horrible.
Even Bill Maher, who's generally considered far on the left, has talked about this, and we're seeing a lot more celebrity attention to this. But yes, there is a genocide of Christians going on in Nigeria, but the mainstream media over here makes it look as if it's some sort of an equal playing field, and that it's just
and it's not at all. That's propaganda. I'm glad that President Trump stepped up and said, "Hey, we're going to send some people in there to sort this out." You speak about this young lady being kidnapped and converted to Islam and made to force marry a terrorist. My wife and I, the last mission we were on together, rescued a girl just like her. She had been kidnapped, held captive for 9 years, forced to marry a terrorist with 2 children. She bore 2 children while in captivity. Do you know we put a team together? We planned an operation for 6 months. Absolutely no one thought it could be done. We did it. And it's all documented. My bride was the point person to be the first one to face the girl because she was in a full hijab, and the threat and risk was through the roof. That's why when I say winning governorship and helping to restore balance to our state, not a big deal to me, because we've done stuff that people consider impossible, and we've done it regularly for years. And that's why I want people to know there's hope. There's someone different here. And as my wife calls it, she says, "Babe, this is just another assignment from God. And we truly believe that, or else I would not be running to win. And I would not be running knowing that we're going to win with the people's help, but offering, it's a sacrificial service for the next 48 years. It's already doing it right now in the next 11 months. But we chose this because we feel called by God to do it. And it's not just the impact of us announcing, but the outcome has proven that I, by no stretch of the imagination, am a normal candidate. We believe we're the people's candidate, and we're watching the support come in, the volunteers. My goodness, I was just in Denver. Even the places that are considered blue, when I speak, it's packed. It's standing room only, or it's sold out. So we just want to continue down this pathway. And again, I would encourage people, just go to victor2026.com, look, sign up, and watch what happens. Be part of the movement, not just an election.
You have the support of some mainstream Republicans in Colorado. Heidi Ganahl, who was the last Republican nominee for governor,
Yep.
Helped kick off your campaign.
She did. I remember when I told her, she looked at me and I said, Heidi, I'm thinking about running. She goes, I had her on my podcast when she was running. And I never forget, she looked at me and she goes, are you serious? I said, yeah. She goes, her first words, you can win. You could actually win. And she got so excited. And then, yeah, we've seen other people stepping up to support us. And we've got a lot of other endorsers in the queue, but we're not pulling out yet. Believe me, I got texts from folks in the White House, and they were like, hey, the White House is very excited about you. I think they used the word stoked. And I said, wonderful. Which part of the White House? I don't know if it's the guard shack or the kitchen staff. They laughed. They go, no, the West Wing. I said, does he know? They said, yes, and he's very excited. So I've already had people up there say, do you want his endorsement?
Now, what about people who worry that you have been so traumatized
Yeah.
and it's caused mental illness in the past?
Yeah.
And you've been on and off meds for that over the years. And they say, well, what if he reverts? What if he snaps? What if he's not stable once he's in office? What do you say to people who have that concern? Because I've seen that.
Yeah, I think that's an honest question. I haven't been on meds for any type of psychiatric help for, my gosh, we're going on probably 20 years. I've had no relapses. I sought the counseling. I did the hard work. And so much so that I've become a specialist in trauma care. I know this, that if you try to disqualify someone based on the what ifs, then you've got to get rid of all the veterans. You've got to pull anybody that's in any position of authority or leadership or role, including doctors, nurses, first responders, hell, your own son, man, who has seen stuff most people want. That affects the human psyche. But we're made to heal. And God has healed me, but he's kept my heart soft for people who have suffered. Otherwise, our country would cease to function, because as a nation, starting with 9/11, just start there all the way through, we saw more war, more violence than anyone. And I still mentored generals in the Pentagon, to celebrities, to political leaders, to billionaires. And if I was a risk, none of them would be seeking me, including Charlie Kirk, for mentorship.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time. Thank you very much for spending any final words you want to say before we go. We've got about a minute or two left before you have another appointment.
Well, I would say this. It's really been good to get to know you. I've heard about you, but I've enjoyed this. I don't enjoy every interview. I do them, but I've enjoyed this. And I want people to know what you see in me as not normal is a good thing, because the playbook by which the Republicans have lived and died by hasn't worked for over 2 decades. It's time for someone who is different but highly qualified based on life experience to get in as a leader with the backbone, because it's going to be a lot of hard work to get things done, to stand for the people. And I appreciate them going to any of my social medias or our website, victor2026.com.
Well, thank you, Victor. And I would encourage everyone listening or watching or both to this show to go research Victor on YouTube. There's endless amounts of information out there. You will hear from his psychotherapist in the past. Yep. You'll hear from his family members.
Yes.
And if you take in the tremendous volume of information that's out there, Victor starts to make a lot more sense than if you just look at certain things in isolation, such as that video where you were just having some fun.
Right.
That we showed earlier on in the show. And thank you very much, Victor. It's been a real pleasure to meet you, and good luck on the campaign trail.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your support and friendship.